And yeah, Mike.
Yep.
What are you going to have after the meeting? What are you going to partake of after the meeting?
What, when Edson's finished?
Yeah.
The usual slides, upcoming event.
Oh, no. What are you going to drink?
Oh, yes. Yes, I have my usual selection of craft beer sitting right behind me, but I promise not to.
I remember years ago when I first came to New Jersey, I had a colleague in the department who brought his 2-year-old son. We went to a bar and he was feeding the 2-year-old son beer from his own glass. Yeah. And I thought, oh, what's a sip hurt? But this was like one sip after another. It was crazy. I think it's safe for you to go. You're on the air.
All right. Sounds good. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the June edition of the Garden State Java User Group meeting. We're happy to have Edson Yanaga here tonight. And so before we get started with Edson's presentation, we'll do our usual introductory slides, which I'll start right now.
It works. You got it. All right.
And we're open.
You hope.
Okay, there we go. Oops. All right, so the usual agenda is to thank our sponsors and then talk about a couple of things of what's new in the Java community. Introduce Edson, and then after Edson's presentation, usually talk about what we have planned for you for between now and November, and then some upcoming events of our some of our other Java user group friends. And then, of course, we'll have our giveaway to a license of IntelliJ IDEA. So JFrog is our platinum sponsor. We thank them for their support. This is the second year now since we moved over to the Garden State Java Group as our rebrand from the old name, and we appreciate their support. And then, oops, there we go. And our silver sponsor is Azul Systems. We are partnered with DevNexus, and some of you may be familiar with this conference, which is usually in the February to April timeframe, and it takes place in Atlanta. And we have per meeting sponsors, Jakarta EE or Eclipse Foundation. They provide free access to Crowdcast, which we have used in the past. And then, of course, JetBrains, who provide 1-year licenses of IntelliJ IDEA. So what's new? Well, JDK 19, which is scheduled to go general GA in September, is now in ramp down phase 1. And what that means is the feature set is frozen, and then all the source codes in the mainline repository. And you can see all the JDK enhancement process, JEP, all those features that will be part of JDK 19. You're going to learn a lot more about the different projects, Project Amber, Panama, Loom, as you can see there and highlighted in green. And so there are 2 from each of those 3. The fourth one is Valhalla. But in Valhalla, they're waiting for some features to be completed, I think, from either Panama or Loom, and I forget which. So an example of a Valhalla feature is the var type inference. So that's one of the features that was in JDK 10. So Project Loom is it's virtual threads, and combined with that is structured concurrency. So, and then, these are in different phases. So you'll notice they're in preview or an incubator process. It's not the full-blown feature just yet. This has been going on for the last few releases of the JDK, like pattern matching for Switch. This is the 3rd preview right now. Same thing happened with records. So JDK 17 records, for example, was actually the full, for the full feature, but it went through its phases in JDK 15 and 16, etc. There is a Java OCP 17 study guide for anybody that's interested. And there's the book right there. Scott Selikoff, who is one of the leadership members of the Garden State Java group, is one of the co-authors. And that's the URL to, I think that URL was to participate in a raffle of some kind. And then we're still waiting on Jakarta EE10. And I know there's a scheduled sort of release party at the end of this month, and I think it's June 28th. But I'll try to nail down an actual date. I can ask Ivar Grimstad, for example, for a more accurate date on that. So there is a lot of updated specifications in Jakarta EE10, and there's also a new profile called Core. So it's a subset of all the specifications, to complement the web profile and the normal platform. So we're happy to have Edson here. And as I just recently learned, he's the former director of developer experience from Red Hat. He's now with Google. He's also a Java champion and a Microsoft MVP. He's also a published author, frequent speaker at international conferences discussing Java, Kubernetes, Quarkus, microservices, cloud computing, and DevOps. Edson believes that everything we do, big or small, matters, and that we can all create a better world for people with better software. His life's purpose is to deliver good software and to help developers worldwide in delivering better software faster and reliably. Today, his job, his hobby, and his life's purpose are all the same thing. And he's happy that he found his, you have to help me with that, Ikigai? There's a link to that in your bio there.
Ikigai, yes.
Yes, did I say that correctly?
Close enough,
okay.
yeah.
So, I looked at it briefly, but that was a while ago. So of course, but so I am going to stop sharing, and without further ado, please welcome Edson Yanaga.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, the Garden State Jug, for the invitation. So happy to be here. And as Michael said, I left Red Hat about a month ago. But you can leave Red Hat, but Red Hat doesn't leave you. So I still have my Red Hat here. And now I have another hat to share. I have my Nuclear hat here, the same one as the movie. So I have more good stuff to share. And as of today, I'm a staff developer relations engineer. I'm leading Google Wallet. But today I'm going to be talking about Quarkus because Quarkus is still my favorite Java framework. And now I can say that now that I don't work for Red Hat anymore, you can trust me because yes, Quarkus is truly impressive and it's still my favorite framework by far. And I'm saying that because I've been a Spring developer for 20 years something. I've been using Spring since Spring 1.00 beta 2. And I can tell that I truly believe that Quarkus represents a revolution in the Java landscape. And we're going to learn more about Quarkus today. As soon as I'm able to share my screen here, and hopefully you can see my slides. Today's talk is Coding That Sparks Joy with Quarkus. This is an evergreen talk because I'm always updating with the latest features, latest versions of Quarkus. So we can always talk. We can always have the same slides, which are very few, by the way, but we can always present new content because Quarkus is always releasing new versions, new features, and new enhancements for developer productivity. And that's one of the things that excites me the most about Quarkus, the developer productivity. And Michael already introduced me. I'd just like to add that my Twitter handle is @Yanaga. You can see that in the top of the screen. And I just learned a few weeks ago that I was the first person to be a Java champion and a Microsoft MVP, but I'm not a Microsoft MVP anymore because I learned 2 weeks ago that Google employees can't be Microsoft MVPs anymore. So I'm a former Microsoft MVP. And a fun fact is that I'm Japanese Brazilian. I can see here some people at Zoom. I suppose that Bruno is a Brazilian, so at least we have one more fellow Brazilian here, but I don't see any more Japanese Brazilians, at least yet. And I like to point that I always like to say, well, you should follow me on social media, on Twitter at least, because Java developers, they have a lot of time to spend on social media. Because Java developers, they're usually always waiting for everything. We have the perfect excuse. My code is compiling. I'm waiting for my Maven build. I'm waiting for my code for my test to be executed. I'm waiting for my build to finish. I'm waiting for my deploy. I'm waiting for everything. And we know that sometimes we laugh about it, but it used to be true. At least until very recently, it was true for developers. We used to spend a lot of our time at work waiting for stuff to be done. And I like to say that in the past tense, because with Quarkus, we don't have to do that anymore. And Quarkus has a lot of benefits. It's supersonic, subatomic Java, it's super fast, super small in production. But it also gives you the developer joy because you don't have to wait for anything anymore. And we know that we might deny, but in many different occasions, we Java developers, we used to be jealous. Well, maybe not that much. Jealous about PHP developers or Ruby developers or JavaScript developers or other developers they used to use to code with dynamic programming languages because they have a much better feedback loop. For them, it was just a matter of typing the code, saving, refreshing, and everything was automatically there. But for Java developers, we used to have to wait for our project to build, restart, refresh, and it would take minutes. That's why we drink a lot of coffee. Like we have a lot of time to go to the cafeteria and get a fresh coffee, a fresh cup of coffee, because we're waiting for everything. Now, I guess that the coffee consumption will like drop dramatically because with Quarkus, everything is just a matter of save, refresh, and it's automatically there. And I can tell because I did a bit of JavaScript development in the past months. And I was so spoiled by Quarkus that for me, Node.js development is so slow because my Node.js server like took 600 milliseconds to restart. And for me, on my machine, when I'm not doing Zoom presentations, Quarkus usually takes less than 100 milliseconds to restart. So that's the development experience that you can expect when you're using Quarkus. And the Spark Joy part, if you ever read or seen the Netflix series about Marie Kondo, yes, I stole that from her because I truly believe there are some things in the Java world that we should like be thanking because it brought Java to today. But we should just thank and leave behind because they really don't spark joy. We should just keep the things in our life that spark joy. And Quarkus and its amazing development experience is one of those things that really spark joy in our life. So let's skip the slides and move to the live coding part of this presentation. So I'm going to move here to my browser. And if you go to quarkus.io, which should be your favorite website these days, because quarkus.io is where the amazing development experience begins. So if you go to the top right corner, well, the site is very beautiful, by the way. You have guides, you have blogs, you have lots of different features, but we're going to move to the live coding part. So if you go to the top right corner of the screen and you click on the Start Coding button, you'll be directed to the Quarkus generator. And here, well, the only boring part of this presentation is that I have to type the group ID, con Red Hat developers, and the artifact ID, which is going to be Garden State Jug. And here I can pick some extensions. What are extensions? Extensions are plain old Java dependencies that are optimized for Quarkus. So if I pick one of those extensions, actually I'm adding capabilities to my Quarkus application. I'm going to pick just one, REST Easy Reactive. We're going to start with just like a JAX-RS REST endpoint hello world. And that we should be good. And if you want to explore more options from the Quarkus generator, you can always click here on the more options. You can specify the version, the Java version. Mark was pointing that, well, Java 19 is about to be released. Well, with Quarkus, you can try Java 11 or you can try Java 17. These are the stable options. But of course, if you want to try with newer versions, we always encourage people to try newer versions of Java to see how we're supporting the new features of the Java virtual machine and Java language specifications. But as officially supported as of today, we have 11 and 17. And on my machine, 11 is the default. So I'm going to pick 11 and I'm going to generate my application. Here I can download the zip file. It's being downloaded to my machine. And now I'll move here to my terminal. see if I'm the right folder. Yes, let's just unzip the file that I just downloaded, the Garden State Jug. And I can go here. And now I need an IDE. And I know that we're going to have an idea raffle in the end of this meeting, but I'm going to open my project with Visual Studio Code with the Java extension provided by Red Hat. It's by far the fastest and lightest way for you to start coding in a Java project. So let's move it. And you'll be surprised by how productive VS Code can be when you're using Quarkus as well. Okay. And just in case you ask, I use both. I use VS Code when I want to quickly open a project, try to do something, run, experiment with something. And when I'm using like my IDE for longer periods of time, like I want to spend the next 2 days like deep inside the same project, then maybe it's worth like for me to load my IDE and code on that. But when I want to quickly switch between projects and when I want to try something, I always prefer VS Code because it's by far, as I said before, the fastest and lightest way for you to start coding your Java projects. And it already detected that it's a Maven project. And before anybody asks, yes, we do support Gradle. So Quarkus supports Gradle as well. And you can see that my Quarkus generator created a hello world endpoint. And let the magic begins, because I can type the magic words here in my terminal. MVN Quarkus :dev. You can use your IDE, of course, to do that, but I like to use the terminal. I'm an old-fashioned person. And you can see that Quarkus is, well, actually Maven is compiling the project, and now Quarkus is starting in development mode. In development mode, Quarkus is listening for changes in the file system. So whenever you save a file, doesn't matter if it's a Java file, properties file, configuration file, Quarkus is going to detect that and is going to restart. But it's not going to take minutes. Actually, Quarkus is going to take milliseconds to restart, and you'll be able to refresh your application, and the results like of your recent coding will be automatically there. We will be instantaneously there. So that's the amazing Quarkus development experience. And to keep me honest here, let's see if my project is running. I'm going to localhost 8080. Congratulations, you just made a Quarkus application. And if you go to /hello, you see that I have a hello from REST Easy Reactive. So yes, Quarkus is actually running and working. And if I go back here to my IDE, I say hello from Garden State Jug. And I save the file, I go back here, refresh, and my result is automatically there. And how long did Quarkus take to restart? It took 980 milliseconds. Yeah, not the best day. Not the best day, but well, I'm using Zoom. You can't hear, but my computer fan is like 100%. I have a cooler on top of my computer because it gets super hot here. So, but the beautiful thing about Quarkus is that the more you use, the faster it gets. So you see that our feedback loop time will improve. The more coding we do, the more features we add to our Quarkus project. Okay, so what else can we do here with our code? And you might argue that, well, Quarkus is only that fast because, this is just a Hello World project. No enterprise Java project is enterprisey enough if you don't add a database to your project. So let's try to add more features to my Quarkus application. The way for me to add features to my Quarkus, or even better, new capabilities to my Quarkus application, is by adding extensions. And extensions are listed here in my pond.xml file, so they're plain old Java dependencies. But the easiest way by far for me to add dependencies is by using the Quarkus extension for VS Code. So if I do that and I invoke here the hotkeys, you can see that the top of my list is Quarkus add extensions to current project. So if I type here, I can type the dependency that I'd like to use. And I can say, well, let me use JDBC. So I'd like to add a JDBC driver for PostgreSQL. I'd also like to use some ORM. So let's try to use Hibernate, but not just Hibernate, because I want to use and show you a novel API called Panache. I'd also like to use some JSON. So I would like to return JSON from my database. So I'm going to use REST Easy Reactive JSON here, and I want to self-document my REST endpoint, so I'm going to use small.ri open API. And it should be enough for now. I'm going to just hit enter. You can see here that my IDE is just invoking the Maven plugin to edit my pond.xml and install those dependencies in my project. So here you can see, if I open back here my pond.xml file, you can see that I have new extensions added: JDBC, PostgreSQL, Panache, OpenAPI, and Jackson. And one thing that I didn't mention by now, by default, when you choose REST Easy, you're using the reactive version. That's why I chose the reactive Jackson dependency to map my object to JSON, because with Quarkus, you have a truly reactive layer when you're serving web requests. Because in the past, you would have, well, you can be reactive or you can be just synchronous when doing your REST endpoints. Now with Quarkus, you can use Quarkus REST Easy Reactive by default, and REST Easy Reactive is smart enough to tell if your code is blocking. Then you need like you're using synchronous code, you're using imperative code, and you need some blocking, or if you can be truly reactive. And you can mix and match blocking APIs and non-blocking reactive APIs. And REST Easy is smart enough to choose the best option for you. So you can always have, you don't have to choose, you can use both, because Quarkus is smart enough to tell if you need compatibility, because if you're using blocking APIs, synchronous APIs, or if you can be like highly scalable and you can be non-blocking and you can be reactive if you're using reactive all the way into your database or into your Kafka broker, for example. So that's why we're using REST Easy Reactive, because we don't have to choose. Quarkus you can mix and match reactive and non-reactive points, and Quarkus will always pick the best option for the performance of your program, of your code running here. So we added those dependencies, and behind the scenes, what you didn't notice is that while I was talking, Quarkus detected the change in the pond.xml and already downloaded those new dependencies to my project, restarted, and even better than that, if you were able to take a look at the log here, which might be a bit bigger, what you didn't notice is that Quarkus detected that, well, you asked for a JDBC driver for a PostgreSQL database, but you don't have a PostgreSQL database running here, but you have Docker running your machine. So because Quarkus detected that, and Quarkus Dev Services integrates with Docker, Quarkus already downloaded an image for a PostgreSQL database, started that container image. So now I have a running the PostgreSQL database running inside a container, and Quarkus already auto-configured my project to be connected to this particular database. And I didn't have to touch any kind of configuration. Everything is running right out of the box. So Hibernate is already configured with my database. My Quarkus project is already configured, connected to my database, and everything happened without me having to type a single line of code nor configuration. And how do I know that it's truly working? Well, let's add some more code. Let me go back here to my IDE, and let's try to create a new entity. So I'm going to use here developer.java. And if you ever use a JPA, you know that I need to type here, oops. And sorry that this is happening, but it's asking for my machine to be updated, which I didn't do in some weeks. So I have to, it just keeps hiding my screen. I hope this doesn't happen anymore during this presentation. But now that we're back, if you ever created a JPA entity, you know that you need to come back here to and add an entity. And you would probably thinking that, well, now I need to type the private long ID, @ID. No, you don't need to do that anymore. You can, since we have Panache, you can just extend Panache entity, and you already have persistence built in your entity. When you extend Panache entity, what you're doing is that Panache enables you to create what we call active record style persistence. And active record style means that you're blending the persistence methods with your entity, which some people might say that it's a bad practice. Well, I don't judge. If it's a very simple CRUD scenario, maybe active record is better for you. If you have a complex business domain model, you have complex queries, maybe using a repository is better. But what Quarkus enables you to do is that now you can choose, because in the past, active record style was very difficult or almost impossible to achieve. With Quarkus, well, in Panache, now we can use active records. So you can choose, I'm going to choose the active record style first, and then I can show the repository style later. And let's just add a property here. Every developer should have a name, public string name, and again, opinionated approach. You're probably used to declaring private fields and public getters and setters, but think about that. If you do private fields and public getters and setters, you don't have true encapsulation because you're already exposing the internal state of your entity. So just to make your life easier with Quarkus and Panache, you can declare just public fields, and at build time, Quarkus is going to translate that to private fields and generate the getters and setters for you. So it doesn't make a difference at runtime, but when you're coding, it's much more productive. So it's up to you. You can use the legacy style, Java Bean style, or you can use public fields when you're using Panache. Okay. And what else can we do here? We can create a developer resource. Developer resource, and I can say here that is going to be an application scoped, and I can use get, and actually I just need to add here a path, / developer. I can even omit this one. I can just path. Let's try to minimize the lines of code that we're typing, and I can say public list developer. I'm going to return all developers in my database, developers. And no need to inject an entity manager, no need to inject a repository. I can just type developer.list all, and I'm going to return all developers from the database. And now if I just import the right class here, we should be good. Let's see if it's working. If I go back here to my browser and go to localhost 8080/developer, you see that what is happening right now, Quarkus is already connected to the database because Hibernate is already configured to create the schema, to create the tables for me automatically too. It already created the developer table and issue the query, select star from developer, and return an empty JSON array because there are no developers in my database. How can I insert developers in my database? Well, probably the best way for me in this example is to create a post endpoint. And I'm going to create here a public response, new developer. I'm going to receive a developer as the parameter. And I'm going to, well, if I need to persist the developer, I just need to make sure that the developer ID is null and type developer.persist. Again, no entity manager, no repositories, and just response data status. Let's say created. And it's a good practice for me to return the entity that was just created and view the response. What's missing? Well, we're just missing a database transaction. So let's add the add transaction. Our post endpoint should be good. What else do we need to do? Well, how do I test this post endpoint? Do I issue curl statements in my terminal? No, because since we're using Quarkus and I added the OpenAPI extension, Quarkus already integrated with OpenAPI and Swagger UI. And Quarkus, because Quarkus knows that we're in dev mode, I can go back here and go to localhost /q/dev. And I can even see the dev UI from my Quarkus project. I can change the configurations on the fly, and damn it, it's asking me to update again. So I can see the configuration, the data sources, the Hibernate RM, but I just want to test the Swagger UI. Okay, so if I click on this particular link, Swagger UI, you can see that I'm listing all the resources that I have. I have the developer resource, I have the greeting resource, get developer, post developer, and I'd like to try this particular one, post developer. And if I click here on this button, try it out, you can see that Quarkus already has here an example schema. And if I click on the execute button, hopefully everything went well. I have 201 created and it's already persisted. Let's try to add more Java developers here. I'm going to add Michael. I'm going to add Barry. And execute and refresh. And all of those developers are already here. You can see I have Yanaga, I have Michael, and have Barry. And yes, they are persisted in my database. Okay. What else can we do here with our REST endpoint? Well, what I could do, for example, is to add some seasoning. And when I say seasoning, I'd like to ask to you, I don't know how many of you are available here on this particular meeting, but usually when I travel and talk about Quarkus, if I make like this very informal and non-scientific poll, if I ask developers, well, how many of you are Spring developers? The majority of them raise their hands, and myself included, because I consider myself a Spring developer. And you might be wondering, well, I dedicated many of my years, and my entire career, like for me, in developing Spring applications. But I'm seeing this Quarkus thing, and Quarkus is really impressive. But is there a way for me to be able to reuse my existing Spring skills and still be super productive, like supersonic, subatomic Java? Can I use this amazing development mode from Quarkus? And the answer is yes, you can. And how can you do that? Well, we can add the Spring extensions to my Quarkus project. Then I can reuse those existing Spring APIs into my Quarkus project. Let's try to do that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move back here to my IDE. I'm going to click here and add Spring. So what I like to do, I'd like to add some Spring Web and some Spring Data, which are by far some of my favorite Spring API, Spring Data. We also support, if I'm not mistaken, we also support Spring Batch. Not Batch doesn't seem, but we support Spring Security, Spring Schedule, Spring Cloud Config, Spring Cache API, Spring Boot Properties. So yes, so we support a lot of different stuff from Spring. So did I hit enter? I think I did. Let's see what is happening here. It's building. Let's go back here to my terminal. And let's see if did I hit enter? I don't remember. Let's see. No, I forgot to hit enter. So add extension. So let's add Spring Web and Spring Data. Hit enter. Yes, now I'm adding those extensions to my project. And again, because I'm using Quarkus in dev mode, Quarkus in dev mode is still running here in the background. And it's restarting. Let's see. It failed for now, but it's okay. Sometimes when I mess with the stuff, all I have to do is just run Quarkus dev mode again. And Quarkus is going to restart in a fresh state. And because I stopped, my database container stopped it again. And once it restarts, everything will be automatically configured for me. Okay, you can see here in the log, you can see that my database container is starting up, is already connected, it's already running, and we should be good. So how do we integrate this Spring Data and Spring REST controller here to Quarkus? Well, it's just a matter of coding. So let's create a new developer repository, actually a Spring developer repository. .java, and you know, if you ever use a Spring data, you know that it uses interfaces. So I'm going to use JPA repository, and it's going to be developer, and the ID is of type long. Okay, and I can create custom queries. I can use, for example, public lists, developer, find by name. I can type string name, and it's going to find by the name of the developer. String name, and if I import the right class, list string name, yes, it's okay. And what would be the equivalent in Panache? Well, I can here a Spring developer repository. If I just create another file, developer repository, you'll be able to see the differences. And here it's going to be application scoped because it's a bean, and I just need to implement Panache repository of type developer. Okay, and since it's a class, I have to declare public list developer, find by name, string name. And I need to provide implementation. Let's import the right class here. Return find, and I can say find. I can find by name. No need to create JPQL queries or HQL queries. You can say that name equals to name. Okay, and dot list. Which one is better? Well, it really depends. If you have a very simple queries, custom queries, probably the Spring Data JPA is better for you. But if you ever try to create like more complex queries using Spring Data JPA, you know that quickly becomes like out of control. If you're using Panache, you have a more fine-grained control what kind of queries you can create, so you have more flexibility. So what my current recommendation is that you have more complex business queries, the Panache approach is probably better. You have simpler queries, you have simple use cases. Well, the Spring Data approach might be better. So it's up to you to choose. With Quarkus, like luckily, we can use any of them. So I have both implementations here available, and I can create what? I can create now a developer controller. So Java, and I can add here a REST controller. And I can say the request mapping is good. The path is going to be what? /spring-developer. And I can do the same stuff. I can say public list. It doesn't, there's no developers. And let's import the right one here. And if I'd like to use Spring, I can use auto-wired. I can use constructor injection too, but I'm just lazy. So I'm going to Spring developer repository. Return developer repository dot finds all. And this is going to be a get mapping. Okay. And it should be working. Let's see if it's working. I can go back here to my browser and type localhost 8080/spring-developer. Okay, and again, connected to database, create the schema, retrieve the results, and is returning an empty JSON array. So what can I do? Well, I can go back here and test. Let's insert Barry again and refresh. Yes, Barry is already being returned by my Spring developer repository. How can I improve? Can I use the custom query here? Yes. So we can probably use a string name. And it's going to be a query parameter. Okay, no, it's going to be, oh my God, I forgot path parameter, no. Okay, query parameter for JAX-RS, path parameter, there's not path parameter. Path variable, path. Let's see the Spring. Can we open this one? Okay, I could use some help now because it had me some time. Let's Spring query parameter annotation. So let's use Google request parameter. Damn it. Request parameter. I'm going to use a request parameter is going to be, you can use and type here name, and if the name is not null, it's not null, I can return developer repository, find by name, and use the name. Cool. So here I'm using my custom finder method. Let's see if it's working. So let's go back here to my browser. Refreshing. Yeah, well, because I just restarted, I don't have developers again. I can execute that, and let's try to insert another one, Yanaga, just to have at least two. Oh, come on. And I refresh. I have Barry, I have Yanaga, and if I say name equals to Yanaga, you can see it. Yes, it's filtering properly. And how can I implement the same thing using Panache repository? Well, let's try to do that. I'm going to my developer resource. The same way I do, I use auto-wired. I can use inject here. And we support constructor injection too. I can use developer repository, which is the Panache version. And I can do the same thing here, query parameter. My D is becoming slower today. Query parameter, name. And if name different than null, can return developer find by name and the name dot list. Find by name dot list all. No. Oh yeah, find my name. I'm returning a list already. So let's refresh. We'll go back here to the browser, and instead of going to spring-developer, you can see the URL. Let's move here to just developer. Again, restart it. Let's insert some developers. Yanaga and Barry. Refresh. Yes, they're already there. And I'm going to add name equals to Yanaga, and it's working. Cool, right? Well, I think it's super cool. What else can I show you here that well, now that I'm running Quarkus? Well, of course, we have more features. So you might have seen these features that I'm presenting to you today, like the panache, the Spring dependencies, the Spring extensions. And before you ask me, we're not running Spring on top of Quarkus because the Spring part would still be slow and consuming a lot of memory. So what we're actually doing, because the Spring folks did a great job like implementing Spring, everything in Spring is a matter of annotations and interfaces. So with Quarkus, we re-implemented the Spring interfaces, and we're fetching the metadata from the Spring annotations to be able to run that particular code using the Spring APIs. So you're not running Spring, you're just using the Spring interfaces and annotations to run your Quarkus application. So that's why this part can still be super fast, super small, and super productive, as you can see here in develop mode. Okay. What else can I show you? Another thing that is neat when you're coding, because every Java developer, we're just tired. I think if you ever create a class in your enterprise project, it's very likely that you have to create private static logger. It can be any kind of logger. It could be like the JBoss logging, SLF4J logging, it can be the Joe logging. And we just started off private logger, and it's probably some type of logger, you get a get logger, and you get the name of the class, for example, developer resource.class. Okay, this is kind of an anti-pattern because it's just boring, and you have to type that in every single class that you're creating. With Quarkus, Quarkus is about developer joy, so you don't have to do that. So it's a matter of just, if I want a logger, I can just type here log dot, and if I choose the class, log dot info, and I can say, well, here is an info message. Okay, and I just save. And what is this info? This info is io.quarkus.login.log, which basically, and Quarkus integrates with SLF4J, JBoss logger, with multiple different logging APIs. So if you want to do logging in your Quarkus application, you don't have to declare those fields, those static fields, doesn't matter what you're using. You can just log because these are static methods and you can access from anywhere. You just like type a single line. You don't have to type that boring thing here on top of the class, and it saves you a couple of lines. Okay, and let's see if it's working. So if I just go back here and refresh the browser, it's empty again because database container restarted. And if I go here to my terminal, you can see here's an info message, which is the message that I just created. So I think it's a nice developer productivity feature of Quarkus. What else can we show? Let's try to create another Quarkus project here. I'm going to have to stop the amazing development mode for now. And another way for me to create a Quarkus project is by using the Maven plugin. So if I type here, mvn io Quarkus Maven plugin, and type 292 final, which is the latest version as of today, and create, Quarkus can generate a project for me. Just looking for the newly published extensions. And again, group ID, Red Hat developers, let's say remote because it's just version default, extensions, you like some code, yes. So it's just a REST easy extension. If I go here, remote, I can say Quarkus. I can say package is going to generate my Quarkus extension. Actually, not my Quarkus jar file, but I'd like to show another feature of Quarkus, which is its integration with GraalVM. So if I say mvn package, and I enable the native profile. I have GraalVM pre-installed here on my machine, and we would be able to see the magic happening. If you ever used GraalVM before, you know that it requires a lot of configuration. It might be painful for you to make your project run with GraalVM, but since we're using Quarkus, Quarkus is a bliss. It's just a matter of enabling the native profile, and Quarkus performs all the configuration. You can see here a lot of like parameters being passed to my GraalVM native image command, and Quarkus is generating my project. It's going to take like a minute or so. On a good day when I'm not using Zoom, it takes about 40 seconds. But because we have some time, we can move back here to my slides. And I'm going to show you some information. And why do we integrate with GraalVM? Well, Quarkus is a truly game changer in the Java landscape. You can see the development productivity, but also when you're running that in production and runtime, Quarkus has major benefits compared to any other Java framework that was created in the past 25 years. And why is that? Because Quarkus was created for this new cloud native, Kubernetes native, container native. It's a container native, container first approach. So I'd like to show you some numbers that might be able to convince you of how great Quarkus is when running at runtime. And why is that? Because I can tell you that a lot of the Java developers, myself included, were worried in the past 5 years at least that we would need to learn another language, another platform before we retire, because Java was losing a lot of ground to these newer technologies. Well, not newer exactly, but different ones, like JavaScript or like Go or even Python, because Java wasn't a good fit for this new cloud native world. Because Java used to take a lot of time to start up, a lot of time to boot, a lot of time to become warm, and used to consume like huge amount of memory in production. And we don't do that anymore. Now we tend to have like more instances instead of having one big instance handling all the requests, and we want to scale up and scale down, because when we have a lot of requests, we want to scale up, and when we don't have those requests, we want to scale down to save that money. So this is the new cloud native world, this new cloud computing world, and Java wasn't a good fit. But thanks to Quarkus, Java might be the best or one of the best platforms that we have for this new cloud native world. And let me show you some numbers. And why we integrate so nicely with GraalVM? Because GraalVM allows you to get your Java code and compile that into a closed world approach. So you perform the optimization at build time, and it allows you to start up your project very quickly. And at runtime, allows you to consume like very tiny amount of memory. And it's a very good fit, for example, for applications like CLIs. It's a very good fit for serverless applications that needs to start up very quickly, and they're gone very quickly as well. So that's why we integrate with GraalVM. And some of the benefits of integrating Quarkus with GraalVM is that you can see that in production, if you're using just a REST endpoint, Quarkus plus GraalVM is going to consume just 13 megabytes of RAM. If you run on OpenJDK, it's going to consume 74 megabytes of RAM. And your traditional cloud native stack is going to take at least 140 megabytes of RAM. And if you decide to move to REST and JPA, Quarkus plus GraalVM is just 35 megabytes of RAM. Quarkus plus OpenJDK is just 130. And your traditional cloud native stack is going to consume at least 218 megabytes of RAM. So I like to say that with Quarkus, you only have two options. You can be super tiny, consuming up to 10 times less memory in production, or you can be much smaller, because when running with OpenJDK, you're going to consume 2 times less memory when running your Quarkus application into production. So these are some of the benefits of just using Quarkus, like in your old JVM, your OpenJDK JVM. Just by using Quarkus, you're able to reduce your memory consumption either by 2 times, or if you choose GraalVM, up to 10 times. It's up to you to choose. And we have some good examples, like, for example, Vodafone was able to re-implement their Spring microservice to Quarkus microservices, and they were able to reduce their AWS bill by half just by choosing to use Quarkus. So that's some of the benefits of you. If you want to choose save a lot of money in your cloud computing view by saving that memory that you're not using, well, Quarkus is a good option. And what about startup time, or boot plus time to first response? Because we're not measuring just the startup time, because some other frameworks might be like quote cheating because they declare everything as lazy, and when the first request comes, you have to pay the price. So what we measure here is how long does it take for your project to start and reply successfully to the first request. Well, Quarkus plus GraalVM takes only 13 milliseconds. With OpenJDK, it's 750 milliseconds. And your traditional cloud native stack takes about 4.3 seconds. So depending on your scenario, your Quarkus applications can be up to 100 times faster to reply to your first request. If you add JPA, Quarkus and GraalVM is going to take 55 milliseconds, Quarkus and OpenJDK 2.5 seconds, and your traditional cloud native stack is going to take so long that I have to scroll here, is going to take at least 9.5 seconds. That's how small and how fast your application can be, your Quarkus application can be, either running on GraalVM or running on top of OpenJDK. And I know this explanation took a lot of time, so if I just move back here to my terminal, you see that my project is running. If I go here to the target folder, you can see here that I have my runner here, I have my runner jar. And if I run this particular binary executable, remote runner, and I can ask for a heap of 6 megabytes, 6 ms, 6 megabyte heap size. It's going to run. So yes, firewall allow, and my Quarkus application is running. It started on my machine because I'm using Zoom in 24 milliseconds. And if I move here, localhost 8080, yes, cloud application is running /hello. Yes, it's serving. And how much memory is consuming? Grep. Did I stop my project? No. Yes. Here, it's consuming only 22 megabytes of machine on 22 megabytes of memory on my machine. That's how fast and how small Quarkus can be on my machine when I'm running Zoom. Okay, so this is some of the features that we can use with Quarkus, GraalVM, Spring. And the next step is, well, how easy it is for me to pick up this application and deploy this to the cloud. How easy it is for me to create a container. How easy it is for me to deploy this particular container to Kubernetes. Do I have to touch YAML files? Well, with Quarkus, you don't have to do that. And I'll just have to apologize because I don't have access to a Kubernetes cluster today. I was asking my friends for me to be able to handle a Kubernetes cluster. Actually, let me check here my phone number, and oh, I got one Kubernetes cluster. I'll be able to do this stuff for you. Okay, so yes, Natalia, thank you, Elder. Elder was trying to create the Kubernetes cluster for me. He failed, so he wasn't able to share with me. But Natale Vinto, the great Natale Vinto from Italy, he just sent me a message and created the cluster for me. So I'm going to access that for this last demo because I know that I'm running almost out of time. So how can I get this particular application and deploy it to Kubernetes? Let's open the application that I just created. I'm going to code here, open VS Code for this new project. And let me close this other one. I won't be deploying the other one because it requires a database. So I'd like to start with this fresh one that only is just a hello world. Okay. You can see here, greeting resource. And what do I need to do to get this application and deploy to Kubernetes or to generate a container? Well, it's just a matter of adding some properties to my application properties file. So you can see that for now it's empty. And what if I want to generate my container image? What if I want to generate the Kubernetes YAML files? What do I have to do to be able to get this application from here to Kubernetes? Well, I just have to type some properties. And to be able to do that, let's add some extensions first. How do I generate a container image? You have two options at least. You can use Jib or you can use Docker. I'm going to use Docker just because more people are used to Docker. And if I want to deploy to Kubernetes, I just need to add the Kubernetes extension. And that's it. Just by adding those two extensions, I'll be able to automatically generate a container image and deploy to Kubernetes. And now I can type like Quarkus container image. It's still reloading. Let's wait for my IDE to refresh. Okay, and of course, it always takes longer when you're waiting. Quarkus, let's wait for my IDE. Container image, yes, Quark container image.registry. I'm going to deploy to a free container registry called key.io or quay.io. Container image, the group is going to be my username, Yanaga, Quarkus. Container image dot name is going to be SparksJoy. SparksJoy. And what else? I like to show you another feature. So I'm going to add this live reload. Let's keep it simple now. And we should be good. Yeah. Just by declaring these, I should be able to deploy to Kubernetes. And how can we do that? Well, I'm in the right folder. So if I'd like to create my container image, I just have to mvn package. And let's clean here. I'm going to package, and I'm going to say Quarkus container image dot build equals to true, because I want to generate my container image locally. And I also would like to Quarkus container image dot push equals to true, because I want to push to my container registry as part of the process. So let's do that. And it's going to take some seconds to be able to generate my Quarkus project and to generate my container image and to deploy to my container registry. And while we're waiting for this process to finish, you're able to see it happening behind the scenes. What I would like to do is to access my Kubernetes cluster that the great Natalia was able to share with me. And if I just open here the message that he sent to me, container image. Oh, this was fast, much faster than expected. The container image was created and it was pushed already. So it's running and everything happened in a matter of 28 seconds. I didn't have the time to log into my Kubernetes OpenShift cluster. So let me try to type this console OpenShift -console dot apps.devcon 6gk.p1.openshift-apps.com. Okay, let me see if I can log in with HTTP passwd. I'm going to add with my username Edson and my helpers. And let's see if it works. I don't want to save it. No, and it worked. Welcome to OpenShift. Yeah, cool. I have it running. Let's here, no project. I'm going to create a project. The project is going to be SparksJoy. And create it. So yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I have my project here. I have my topology, which shows that I shouldn't have anything deployed in my Kubernetes project here, my OpenShift console. And now I just need to copy the login command. Let's log in again, developers. Cancel, display token. Cool, so I'm going to copy these and log into my Kubernetes OpenShift cluster. And yes, I'm using project SparkJoy. But you didn't note that it created, it pushed my container image, it's ready to deploy. And if I move here to my Kubernetes, if I look here at the target folder, it already, now it has a Kubernetes folder. If I list, I have a Kubernetes YAML file. Let's take a look at this particular YAML file. You can see that it already created a service, a deployment for me to deploy the application that I just created. So I didn't even have to touch YAML files, and my application is ready to be deployed to Kubernetes. So let's do that. kubectl apply-f target Kubernetes, kubernetes.yaml. Okay. And it's deploying to Kubernetes. Service created, Kubernetes. So let's just watch kubectl get pods. You can see my application's container creating. It's probably downloading my container image from the container registry. And once it's ready, it will be running. Yes, it's already running. How do I access this application in my Kubernetes cluster? Well, there are multiple different ways for me to do that. But I could create an ingress. But if you're using OpenShift, I can just create an OpenShift root. And at kubectl get root, I have this one. Let's go back here to my browser and /hello. Application is not ready because it's probably HTTP. Yes, it's working, right? Cool. Well, I hope it is. So I just created a container image, pushed the registry, and deployed to Kubernetes. Didn't have to touch anything. But of course, if you want to configure your deployment YAML for Kubernetes, you can. And I ask you to be patient with me. I saved the best for last. And I'm going to show you one of the most impressive features of Quarkus for me when you're developing applications remotely or in Kubernetes. Well, this is a very simple application, but sometimes when you're developing microservices in particular, you have a lot of dependencies in your production or test environment. And you have two options. You can move your application to your cluster, or you can move your cluster to your work computer, your development computer. And the second option is not always easy. Of course, you have test containers these days, but sometimes you have a lot of complexity in your test environment. You can't replicate all the dependencies in your development machine. So the second option is, how can I move my application to my test cluster, my development cluster? But when you do that, well, you lose this amazing feedback loop that Quarkus enables you to have. You have to wait for application to be deployed to Kubernetes. And wouldn't be great if we're able to do this live coding thing here that we can do locally on my development machine, but it's still inside my development cluster remotely inside Kubernetes? With Quarkus, you can do that. And it's just a matter of typing very simple properties in your application. So let's do that. And to save some time, I'm going to copy paste some of them. So what we can do here is that I just need to copy these properties. The live reload password sparks joy, make it harder in your project. I'm going to change my package type to mutable jar. And I'm going to configure my deployment YAML, my Kubernetes YAML file, to say that now I need an environment variable on my container image running on Kubernetes. The Quarkus launch dev mode equals to true. Okay. So just by doing that and by performing the same process again, I can, let's run it again, nvn package, container image build, and container image push true. Okay. So it's going to run. Hopefully it's going to take another. Oh, actually I should have clean first. Oh, clean, I'm running clean. So it should take another 30 seconds to be able to build my container image and push to my remote container registry. Okay, done. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new Kubernetes namespace or see new project like remote dev. And now I'm in the new project. You can see kubectl get pods. Doesn't return me anything. And I'm going to deploy my Kubernetes application, if you go to target Kubernetes YAML file, you can see that the property that I added in my YAML file, target Kubernetes, where is my environment variable? Oh, interesting. I don't see that. Am I Quarkus Kubernetes and the bars? Yeah, it should be working. Let me double check here if I copy pasted the right stuff. Where's and vars Quarkus launch dev mode? Am I in the right folder? Yes. Let's see. Hope it works. And let's apply kubectl apply target -f targets Kubernetes YAML file. It's created. Kubectl get pods. Kubectl logs -f. And Quarkus run. Quarkus mutable jar. Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I think it can work. Let's see, expose sparks joy. Okay, let's get the root, which is a different one because I'm in another project. I'm going to move here back here. Yes, /hello. I'm going to switch to HTTP. Yes, hello, rest easy. So stay with me. So I'm going to even here. You can see my green resource here. I have kubectl logs. And yes, now what I'm going to do, mvn Quarkus remote-dev Quarkus live-reload.url is going to be, I'm going to copy paste this URL from the browser, but hello, and connect to it. Let's see how it works. Fingers crossed. Server did not start a remote dev session. Let's see what we did wrong. Let me create again, mvn.
While you're doing that, Edson, I just want to let our attendees know that the URL to enter our raffle for a JetBrains license is in the chat. So you can go ahead and fill that out if if anybody's interested in a 1-year license.
Yes. Yes, please fill out the form. I'm pretty sure everybody would be super happy to win an IntelliJ IDEA license today. YAML. Oh, now it worked. Damn it. So let's do kubectl apply -f target Kubernetes YAML. We apply. We reconfigured and kubectl get pods. Running, container creating. Error, kubectl logs. Okay. I don't know what happens. Clean package. Let's push the container image again. Sorry for this. Sometimes it happens during a live demo. I'm sorry that I was only able to get my Kubernetes OpenShift cluster a few minutes ago, but I'd like to thank Natalie for providing me a free Kubernetes cluster for this particular session. Fingers crossed, let's try. If not, we'll just move forward and you believe me. If in case it doesn't work, I have other videos on YouTube that shows this remote dev mode feature running. And you just have to trust my word today that it works, just in case I fail again. Yes, so let's move here. CTL, delete pod, and I'm going to delete all of them. The image is going to be downloaded again. Seems to be running, and let's hope for the best. Remote dev. Oh, it worked. Yeah, I don't know what happened before. Maybe I didn't push the container image or didn't build it right. I was in the wrong folder, but you know, this thing happens. Who never? Yeah. And now it's connected in remote dev mode. And if I go back here to my browser, you see that it's still returning hello rest easy because that's the code that is available here on my IDE. So hello, garden, state, jug. Live from Kubernetes. And if I save the file, you see that it will sync. So if I just refresh here what's happening behind the scenes, my application running inside my Kubernetes cluster requested the change from my local machine here from my notebook. My development mode, remote dev mode running on my notebook, send the changes over the wire to my application running inside the Kubernetes cluster, synced, restarted, and I can see the result here live from my Kubernetes cluster. And yes, it worked. Thank you so much. And I just saved the file, refresh again, and you see that while it's syncing, restarting, it worked. And thank you so much for staying with me until now, because this is by far, for me, one of the most impressive features of Quarkus. You can not only do the stuff of moving your dependencies to your machine, but you can get your machine, actually get your Quarkus project inside your Kubernetes cluster, and you can still use this amazing remote development mode if you just tap the right properties. Thank you so much for staying with me. And that's what I wanted to share with you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope you were as excited as I am with Quarkus. And I wish you a great rest of your day. Michael, back to you.
All right, that was awesome, Edson. Thank you very much. I have to say I've had a little bit of experience with Docker, but I don't have Kubernetes set up quite right on my laptop, and I never had a chance to go fix it. But it's I understand the concept, but I think I just need more practice to, you know, get my mind wrapped around how the whole thing works. So, but it's you know, it's you make it look easy, and you know, and
yeah. Oh, and by the way, this feature that showed as remote dev mode, I deployed Kubernetes because a lot of people are doing it these days, but it works anywhere. As long as you have an SSH connection or something, it works with other protocols besides HTTP. So if you have a customer and you want to deploy in their environment, and you have access to that through the network, you can use dev mode. Doesn't need to be Kubernetes.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's I'd like to have a chance to actually work with that more and deploy applications, that kind of thing. But I know we want to do a poll or two. So I don't know, Barry, were you getting those ready?
Sure. I will put up all four, one after another.
All right, sure.
Okay, so here comes the number one. Oh, you logged in from another device. Polling session is inactive. I think you get to do the polls, Mike.
Oh, okay.
So
Oh, polls and quizzes. Okay, here we go. Ah, okay, it's already here. This is okay. This one from last month.
There are 4 of them, 4 questions.
Well, I only see one at the moment, but let me launch it anyway. 'cause I
Yeah,
think
but there's a
one-
drop down. There's a drop down list.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You got it?
Yes, I think I posted it. Oh, I'm not going to end it yet. Do you folks see the poll per chance, or it's been going? Oh yeah, here we go. We got some responses. Excellent, excellent. It only says one question.
Yeah, only one question so far, Mike.
Yeah,
It's
no,
one-
but
it's one-
there's no
it-
drop down.
There are 4 polls. Each has 1 question.
Okay.
So when you go back to the open polls and you go to the drop down, you'll be able to go to the next poll.
Oh, I see. I have to end the poll for this one to, or no?
I would guess.
So, well, let's give it another. It's only been 45 seconds, so 6 people so far have participated.
Yeah, I don't know how to vote. My answer is yes. I would love to have this in person.
Yeah, we're working on going back to in person with a hybrid approach of some kind. So I know the Kansas City Jug is doing something quite interesting this Thursday. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. But so we got 7 people so far. Anybody else? So we got 50% that said yes, they'd love to join a live Garden State Jug meeting. Just so you know, our in-person meetings were in Madison, New Jersey. It's in Morris County, for those of you who may be familiar with the area. So, all right, so I'm going to end this one. It's been a minute and a half. Oh, here we go. I see live meeting. Oh, okay, presenter. Right? Is that oh yeah, are you interested in speaking? There we go. Okay, so this is the next one, folks. We'll give another minute or so. I love the responses so far.
No, you have to be a speaker.
That's
There's
right.
no such thing as no way.
So, this question has to do with us putting together a lightning talks in November.
Yeah, lightning talks are a great way for you to get started.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I can tell you from my own experience 30 years ago, I was deathly afraid of speaking, of public speaking, and I had to do it little by little at work. And then the rest is history, as they say. But I also participated in Toastmasters. That's something for folks if they want to, be more efficient at public speaking. All right, so we got 7 folks. Okay. All right. Next, the Java version. Which one are you using? No, I see a few Java 8s already. So far, one person Java 17, that's good. Java 11, okay. All right. Just so you know, as well, InfoQ does these. No, I can't think of the name. These. Boy, I'm telling you. It's an annual article that we do. I don't know why I'm having such a. Oh, it's a trends report. Okay. All right. The joy of getting old. Yeah.
Senior
So
moment.
we do trends reports, and there's a curve that's where we pigeonhole the technologies into things like innovator, those kinds of things. So if you go to infoq.com, you may see some of these Java trend or trend reports from the different Java queues. All right, so we got 8. We got 8 that participated. That's good. And then last but certainly not least, what's your IDE? And we had a little bit of a, IDE talk tonight. Edson used Visual Studio Code. My preference is IntelliJ IDEA. But I've seen well, just like with Edson using it, I like what I see in VS Code. Oh, VI are a close relative. Does anyone still use VI? So other than me? No.
Elitists.
Any Emacs person here?
Yeah, when I was at Rutgers, I know we had Emacs as a choice too, and then I actually went through and learned VI.
Yeah, you didn't notice, but my VS Code has the VI extension. So actually, I was coding using the VI shortcuts.
Oh, yeah. I like VI. It's just it's I think a lot of this stuff is a dying art, So, so far we have one other IDE. Nobody voted for NetBeans. Okay. All right. Okay. So share results.
Mike, I think when you hit share results, they'll see only the most recent poll.
Ah, okay. How do you go back to look at the other ones here?
I think we gotta can
Okay.
the idea of going back.
All right, I'm not sure how to, there's nothing else to do. It says stop sharing.
Yeah, we could bring it up at the next meeting, Mike.
Okay, yeah. So, okay, cool. All right, so at this point, I'm going to quickly finish up just a couple of slides that we have. Let's see, I have a whole bunch of stuff open here.
Should we do the raffle first or do it after the slides?
We could, yeah, we could do that. Why don't we do that?
We have a winner, actually, and the
Oh,
winner is John Agar. And John, we have your email address, so we'll be sending you a coupon that you should use right away for a
Yeah.
license to JetBrains software.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
the coupon itself is good for roughly 3 months, depending on when I get it. So IntelliJ sends me an email on the 7th of every month. So, we should probably have the most of the 3 months there. So John's still here, perchance?
Yep. Could you put the name in the chat, Bear?
Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Great.
awesome. Great, thank you. All right, so we'll send you that either later tonight or tomorrow morning.
All right,
And I
perfect.
just want to finish up. So congratulations on that. So it's a upcoming events. I know I didn't update this last month, and there were some good ones that just happened over the past few weeks. So I'll have to get myself updated on stuff coming up. But okay, so upcoming meetings. I had mentioned Project Loom earlier today. We have Bazlur Rahman next month on July 12th. And it's your Java code in the fast lane, creating 1 million virtual threads using Project Loom to improve throughput. So I think that will be, a great topic to learn more about Project Loom. We're going to take a break in August, because a lot of people are on vacation and whatnot. So when we resume in September, we have Andres Almaray, who you may recall if you were with us, presented, I would say about a year ago, or maybe a year and a half ago. But he created a project called JReleaser. So he's going to have a hands-on workshop. And then we have Nikolai Parlog, who is a developer advocate at Oracle. And I'm just finalizing all the details on that. And it's Java Next, from Amber to Valhalla, from Panama to, that's would have been from Amber to Loom, sorry. It was a typo there. So that's what we have coming up. And then I mentioned earlier that we plan on having a series of lightning talks. So look for more information at that at some point. And we have some friends of the Garden State Java group, the Kansas City Java group. It's mainly run by Billy Carando from Oracle. And they actually are doing something different there. So they always meet on the third Thursday of the month, which is this Thursday. And they have a talk starting at 5:30 Central. And then the meetup page had for this one, 7 o'clock Eastern. And I think they're going to live stream one and the other was going to be in person. And so, you know, if you're interested in attending, you can, you know, look at the URL there. Our friends at the Atlanta Java user group on Tuesday the 21st is developer productivity engineering. And it's Justin Rioch. And that's a typo as well. I think it's like 6:30, 6:45. All right. And the Chicago Jug this Thursday as well. And talks from Gregor's Piwowarek, wow, on completable future, and Hazelcast version 5, which is kind of interesting because Hazelcast 6 just was released not too long ago. But you can, yeah, you can check that out. I just mentioned Philly Jug. They just had their meeting last week, and their July meeting will actually feature our July speaker, Baz Luhr, on the same topic. So if you happen to miss ours on July 12th, theirs will be on July 19th. All right. Okay, and then I always end with a picture like this because, you know, we've, you know, we all of us have worked hard here, and we deserve to have a beverage to celebrate a great meeting that we have every month with all of our great speakers and our leadership team. So as we say in Germany, Prost, and thank you all for coming. And Edson, thank you for being here with us. And yeah, we hope to keep in touch. And
Yeah, my
yeah.
pleasure. It was great to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Edson. Very nice.
Great to have
job.
you. This is a great talk. You know, this is a Quark. I like Quarkus too. It's a, you know, I've dabbled in it before, and it's just amazing what you can get done. So.